Welcome to the No Script Show, where hate criming yourself for attention is completely optional. How are you doing?
It's a proud moment during Black History Month, on our last show, Black History Month.
To deal with the Jussie Smollet story, I think is...
It's a very proud moment in Black History Month.
It is.
Do you
Oh
want
my
to go
god.
over it, or should I? Because I
Well,
think at this point, pretty much everybody knows the story, but I'll add my commentary on it for a couple of minutes after you're done.
I should, and I think we will, among a bunch of other things. I was going to start off by saying this is episode 8 of 2019. You can find all of our details on noscriptshow.com because according to our analytics, most of our new listeners are coming via the Pocket Casts app, which means that they may not actually even be aware of where we are on social media. So I think that's pretty cool.
Try to forget my Twitter. It's a dumpster fire.
Yeah. And with mine, I'm just... there's a chief strategy officer of a marketing agency I won't mention who continues to make an ass of himself on Twitter.
It's just 300 racists.
Oh my fuck. That was like... I don't know what happened this week. It's like some like sub-processor in the simulation must have crashed because things have gotten a bit weird, even more so than usual.
There's so much to discuss. I can't wait to get into it.
Okay, so I think we should. So where do we start? With the racism, the bad economic plans?
Jussie Smollett.
I don't...
Trump being a racist, apparently.
Trump's homophobic, anti-homophobic agenda. Like, there's just so much.
I want to go in on that because that's just delicious to me. Like, it's just... Okay.
All right, maybe we should start with Black History Month as the topic. Have you got anything in mind for that? Because this is our last week.
I do, but it's more of a diatribe, really. I want to highlight the best and the worst of contemporary Black history right now.
I love the phrase contemporary Black history because it's like an oxymoron.
So yeah, I think the worst recently is things like Jussie Smollett, which we'll get into later.
Yeah. Okay.
But the best right now for me personally is Big Daddy Liberty, aka Sitle. I don't know the rest of his details.
Yeah.
Mostly because of the roadshow he's doing and continuing to speak out and his account growing. If you don't know him, looking him up on Twitter, he is, in my opinion, probably one of him and Soul Economics are probably two most important Black Twitter accounts because of the way they break the compound or the mold of, if you're Black, you have to think this way, otherwise you're an Uncle Ruckus or Uncle Tom. FYI, I don't think anyone's actually ever read Uncle Tom's Cabin because they're really misusing that term.
Which is kind of like, I mean, the moment you start using like slurs to apply to people, then obviously you're misusing the term. Although to be honest, just phonetically, I love the name Uncle Ruckus. Just phonetically, it works as a name, but I don't even know what that means, so I don't know, But anyway.
But I think the most important part of them is that they give young Black people in the country a outlet, or rather a source of information that encourages critical and independent thought.
Yep.
And, I don't want to speak for the entire Black community, but to me, that's probably one of the biggest, most important things that the Black community, both in South Africa and in the world, needs, is the ability to think critically. For as cringy as she is, Candace Owens, I love her because, she at least proves that as a Black person, I don't actually like her, but I like that she proves that Black people are not a monolith.
Yep.
I think she's a major grifter, and just there's so much there that not to like, so I won't get in on it.
Yeah.
And then in terms of real history, even though he's not dead, since I mentioned Soul Economics, I can't forget Soul himself.
Yeah,
Thomas Sowell himself.
Thomas Sowell, yep.
And Thomas Clarence on the Supreme Court Justice.
Yep.
Both two black men who are more, I guess Sowell doesn't confirm himself as a conservative, but like Clarence Thomas on the Supreme Court does, and Thomas Sowell, because they again are, without guys like that, you wouldn't have people like Soul Economics and Sitle who are making that impact in the Black community. And I think that is the most important thing. And if I had to cap off this whole diatribe, I would probably say my greatest wish to come out of Black History and Black History Month is for us to reach a point where Black History Month is something of the past, that we just don't need that anymore, that we've finally gotten up on our heels. That's why I like guys like Herman Moshawa. I know that people have their downsides with him, with some of the stuff he's said and done politically recently, although I guess everyone loves his border policy now. But Herman Moshawa is that guy. He really did start from nothing, in Garango and Hammanskraal, and build himself up. He was literally selling stuff out of the trunk of his car. And his story is something we need. That's why I also always retweet, or often retweet, young Black entrepreneurs on Twitter, like, I'm selling this for this amount and doing this. So yeah, that's what I want to cap this whole month off with, really, is that, again, I hate to speak for the whole Black community, is that we as a ethnic group need, although we need to realize the injustices we've been dealt, our fixation on those injustices may just end up becoming a terribly huge hamstringing to us advancing in the future. And that's what I really fear. And I hope that more and more young Black people take the movement forward, like Sitle, and do this Thomas Sowell path, where even if you take an ideology I don't like, the mere fact that you have that ability to take that ideology on your own, that's what I hope for.
Awesome. Cool. No, that was a good speech. So with that said, let's get right into Justin Smollett, because I fucking love this story.
Yes, you saw it. Yes!
Fucking hell. It has been a roller coaster. Like, I'm seeing updates hour by hour now of like,
it's so good. It's so good though. It's like that delicious, like
it's like everything about it is like, it's peak everything. Like, it's peak Hollywood. It's peak, like, in the middle of Black History Month. Everything about it.
It's so good, though. It's so good. I love it. From the start, though, okay? Like, from the start, right?
Yeah.
I don't want to sound like I'm victim blaming, but honestly, two white supremacists are roving Chicago for Black gay actor Jussie Smollet, because Empire as a show is huge in the MAGA crowd, are roaming Chicago in the middle of a polar vortex at 2 a.m. near Subway with bleach and rope on hand.
Okay, so
you want to tell the story?
I don't.
According to him, what happened?
Okay, so in complete fairness, this isn't a thing that happened in the last week. This whole thing happened like a month ago. In the last week, the truth has come out, and that's why it's now suddenly a huge scandal. The story was that he was basically just chilling at 2 a.m, like you do, and I love the description, like these two big white guys in MAGA hats assaulted him, like attacked him, put a rope around his neck, poured bleach all over him, although it was an unidentified chemical when he told the story. And then it's like, they dropped a whole bunch of like, this is, MAGA country and go back home, or like whatever. And it became this like
homophobic slurs.
And I'm like,
MAGA country.
And it's like, I looked at this and I went, okay, I understand that a lot of people might not be familiar with Tumblr culture as a thing because it's kind of dying now. But there was this spate of people writing stories of shit that never fucking happened. Like how they told off like...
Or that happened on Reddit. Or that happened.
Exactly. And it's like, yeah, okay, sure. Sure, some nervous 14-year-old stood up against like a 45-year-old old guy in a restaurant and told him off for racism and everyone applauded. Of course that fucking happened. Because, it's like... And that's how the first version of this reads. Like it's too perfect to be real, right? Like you said, like the context doesn't make sense. But then a month later, like it started falling apart because like everyone's like... All the Democrats were on this, like, this is horrible, and we got to, like, support Jussie Smollett.
Because we all know that Chicago is peak MAGA country. Like,
oh, yeah.
Oh, MAGA. Really? I don't think there's a single fucking Trump voter in Chicago at all.
I know. Oh, my God.
Also, I love that they had to... it turns out they were just wearing red caps. They had to go to a craft store called, I shit you not, the Crafty Beaver, to buy red hats. There are no MAGA hats in MAGA country, apparently. No store sells MAGA hats in MAGA country, apparently.
Yeah, of course. So, I mean, obviously, these two flew in from, like, Nebraska, especially for this, you know?
Tracking that Empire actor, because, again, you know, it's a huge show in the MAGA demographic.
Oh, my God. Okay, and then the truth started coming out. The first one, and it's just like, I have two thoughts about the way this is unfolded is that it then came out that actually maybe he had sort of paid a pair of black Nigerian brothers to do it, because then they started talking to the cops, and the cops raided their place and they found the bleach in the rope, and then it's like,
and the magazine that from the threatening letter.
Yep, and then they found call records from Jussie to these Nigerian brothers an hour before and after the attack. So, like, okay, you know, and it's like, so the story devolved to the point where he had staged the attack on himself, which I'm like, that is peak Hollywood. It doesn't have to get any better than that. Then it got better than that, because Fox, the Fox producers, or Fox Productions that does Empire, first came out and said they support him, and then, like, in the last couple of days, it's like, actually, we're reevaluating his future on Empire now, so I think his career is over. So he went and he apparently not only, like, did a very tearful apology to the rest of the cast on Empire, literally coming straight out of the courthouse where all this is taking place. He's now dropped the fact that actually he's got an untreated drug problem and that's why he's acting out.
Boom, there it is.
And I'm like,
out.
Oh my God. No, dude, you are the worst Charlie Sheen in the world, because not even Charlie Sheen hate crimed himself to get attention. You can't use the untreated drug problem as an excuse. So I think that's where we're up to right now. I don't know what I don't know what the next week holds for this story, but it's been like a roller coaster of just like Black History Month, MAGA had racists beat up a black man. Oh my God.
MAGA country.
And then it's like, well, the assailants were. Oh, it's just like fucking hell. So here's my two thoughts on it. First, I'm wondering, because this worked. Because this actually worked, I'm wondering how long it is until people on YouTube start hate criming each other for the views, because I just kind of imagine there'll be accounts that do that. But secondly, and most importantly, and this is why I keep telling people, you do not take moral or ethical guidance from entertainers. Do not look to actors for your moral guidance in life. I mean, this is what people do. And
because most of them are fucking crazy people.
Yes, they are. And it's like...
And I mean that with love, but I mean, even there's very few, like, well-adjusted actors out there, and even less so if they were child actors. Like, there's very few well-adjusted actors out there.
And that is the truth. I mean, so I'm just like, oh my God, you mean to tell me an actor staged a very poorly written, cobbled together incident to raise his profile in the press? Because, like, and then the other thing that we just kind of skipped over is the fact that at one point the story came out. Chicago Police Department said the reason he did all this was that he was unhappy with his salary on Empire.
I love that the black police chief was extra pissed at him. It's like a scene out of Lethal Weapon. Like, because what is it about, like, police chiefs being black, grizzled, old, and angry? Like, like, is that the requirement to be a police chief in the inner city in America?
Yes, it is.
To be black, grizzled, old, and angry.
But also, Chicago is such hardcore MAGA county that the police chief is black, right? That's how hardcore MAGA it is. What?
Honestly, I think, like, we should just go. Like, we should do an investigation. Forget the Russia collusion investigation.
Oh yeah, that's over. Let's
do an investigation as to how many people in Chicago or in Illinois as a state in general voted for... Wait, I think Trump won Illinois. I'm not sure. But Chicago itself... No, Illinois is very blue. How many people in Chicago voted for Trump? I would wager less than fucking 10.
Yeah, no,
and those 10 were probably businessmen who were passing through the city on the day of voting. I don't know. Like...
So Illinois... is a blue state surrounded by red states. It is like the holdout for Democrats on that side of the U.S.
So Illinois is like a inverted New York, because New York City is a blue city surrounded by what's technically a red state.
Yep.
But the concentration of the population of New York City is so high that it makes the state blue.
Yep. No, it is... there's a little column on where Chicago is, and it's like this huge blue column. No, it is clearly MAGA country. They are Confederate flags and pickup trucks. That is Chicago. What the fuck?
That's how they roll in MAGA
Oh.
countries. Really, dude?
Isn't Chicago like the #1 city for like black gang gun violence or something?
Yes.
Like that's how mega it is.
Like I'm not even kidding. Yes, it is.
No, because I know that because another actor on Empire also did a stand-up show on Netflix, and part of his routine was talking about the episode he shot for Empire, and how they had a prop gun, with blanks, and they were like recording a shooting scene, and then after that there was like real gunshots, and they had to get the fuck out of there. And I'm like, that sounds like Chicago to me. No, so it's just amazing. It's more likely, like, even if you believe Jussie Smollett's story, if there's two big white guys in red MAGA hats roaming the streets at 2 a.m., it's more likely they would get shot than anything else. Like, I think at that point they would be asking for trouble. So
pretty much, yeah. Can I add my two factors to this?
Hit it.
I've two factors. One that makes me laugh and one that genuinely makes me angry. The
Okay.
one that makes me laugh is that you, as an actor, hand signed the check to the two Nigerian brothers who, by the way, work on the show with you.
Oh my god!
They work on the show and they're like personal trainer and shit. Work on the show with you to get the stuff. And also, the Nigerian brothers didn't bother to throw away the magazine for the threatening letter they wrote in. Like, oh, dude, really, guys? You couldn't like dump that shit? That makes me laugh. But on a moral level, what makes me angry about this is, imagine for a second they found two white guys in the area who happened to relatively match the story.
Oh yeah.
Or the description. And now, do you think or do you not think that Jussie Smollett would, and this is pure conjecture, I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that Smollett would be willing to lie and say, yeah, those are the guys who did it. And now you would have two totally innocent men getting absolutely hammered. So at best, which we are in the best situation, he's wasted thousands of dollars of valuable police man hours in an already heavy crime-riddled area of the country. Yep. And at worst, he could have sent two totally innocent men to jail for a very long time for being in the wrong place at the wrong time. That infuriates me, and on that level, I think he's an absolute piece of shit for doing that.
Yeah, no, that is a fair assessment. And it's also, I think that's one of the things the CPD police chief said, was that the thing that really infuriated him was that this tied up, this was a high-profile case, that tied up police resources over a completely faked incident, and they're already pushed to the limit as it is. So, yeah, dude, nothing about this, but so he hired two people that he worked with and then left a paper trail and an evidence trail. Okay, clearly this guy isn't smart. He's only pretty, which is why he's an actor. And this is why you don't take moral advice from actors. Fucking hell. That's amazing. That's the dumbest thing.
I make my Saint Sheen jokes all the time, but there's no way in hell I'm going to take moral guidance from Charlie fucking Sheen. Like, it's just not going to happen.
Take party guidance. That, yes.
Sure,
but,
absolutely.
But, oh, my God, yeah. No. That's amazing. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to how this finally pans out. Like, does he go to Oprah and, apologize? And do we see, a self-help book a year from now? Like, the gripping battle of his addiction that was destroying his life. Except, apparently, it was not a problem up until this incident. But anyway, I swear to God, the simulation has been on overdrive the last week. I don't know. Something is wrong.
Well, apparently being anti-homophobia is now racist as well. So
I love that it's racist. Okay, so hang on. This story, if the background is basically that Trump is pushing these countries to drop their very homophobic anti-gay laws, and so the pro-gay lobby in the US has now spun that to turn it into a bad thing. Is pretty much what happened.
Yes. Apparently, his push to end homophobia is an old racist tactic. The gist of it being, by using progressiveness as a shield, he's telling brown people what to do, which is wrong, even if he's telling them not to throw gay people off buildings or hang them or burn them alive in cages.
So I'm going to quote the Washington Times headline. Out magazine writer says Trump effort to decriminalize... okay, you see I was halfway through it. And then the browser decided to kill itself. Trump's effort to decriminalize homosexuality abroad is an old racist tactic. So I have a couple of questions. And I actually, okay, I'm happy that this is happening, not because of the blowback, but because for years, one criticism has always been leveled against the progressives and the feminists and all the rest in the US is that you guys are so concerned about your issues in the States and you ignore all the issues in places like Saudi Arabia where women are actually oppressed and actually, downtrodden. Why aren't you taking up their cause? And I always thought, what would happen if someone actually tried doing this? Like if someone takes up the cause, would you back them? And it turns out, no, you won't. A gay magazine will attack the one person trying to decriminalize homosexuality because of his politics. And I'm like, okay, now I know. This is now a settled question for me.
Now we have the answer.
We have the answer. And the answer is, if your politics are wrong, then it doesn't matter what good you try and do in the world, you'll get attacked for it. So now we know.
There's a lot of reasons to come down on Trump, but pushing to end homophobic laws and customs is like, you really can't get behind him on that? Really?
And it's like,
this is the same man who, by the way, who's ambassador to Germany. I can never pronounce his name. It's Rich Gershom or whatever. Openly gay man is his chief ambassador to Germany. Like, it's it's like the optics of this is beyond me. Like, I cannot process that you are saying no to this simply because the person championing it is somebody you don't get on with.
Yeah, so I love it. So the comments on the actual article on out, all of them are like, what the fuck are you guys doing? But I think the best one, quote, are you really 100% serious in suggesting that decriminalizing homosexuality is a bad thing for gay people? Slow down there, Uncle Ruckus, end quote. And I'm so glad I got to see that phrase used twice. And it's like people think it's a satire. And it's not. Out magazine, they were the ones that supported the whole, push for equal rights in the US. So now we know for a fact that it's all politics. And I think I said this a couple shows ago. The LGBTQ movement was supposed to fizzle out after they won the right to equal marriage. And that's because it was formed for a purpose. And then after it achieved that, it just kept rolling on and mutated into this horrible political beast. And this is a symptom of that, because everything gay is anti-Trump in the US. And if you're like gay and pro-Trump, then you're out of the club sort of thing. And here's proof. Like, you can even have the most, not even Obama did this, by the fucking way. For 8 years, I do not remember the story once of him like, maybe don't kill gay people. Like, Trump does it and all of a sudden it's wrong. Like, what? And I'm not even like a huge fan of Trump, other than as like a source of memes. The dude's a legend for the memes.
Yeah, he's an absolute meme goldmine. That I'll give him. Like,
it's like Trump is showing us the world in which someone like Alex Jones is president, and that's the part about this that I just admire, the sheer drama. But even I would be like, you know what? How about let's try and push for gay rights globally? Okay, even that, it's like
don't even give them preferential treatment. Just don't kill gay people horribly for being gay people.
That's just, it's like gay people enjoy being on ground level of buildings. Let's just start with that. Don't throw them off buildings. Like, if we can just draw that line in the sand, it'll be progress. No, and it's like, to me, it's insane. Like, I can't. So anyway, this is what happens when these movements, now it's just about the politics. LGBTQ is a voting bloc in the US, and it's now just mainstream politics, and it's toxic and corrosive and everything else that politics is. So I'm just like, I am pretty staggering. All right. So anyway, dude, what else has happened this week? Because
there was a budget speech that I wanted no part to do with.
See, I don't even want to think about that. I don't want to think about the fact that we just gave the largest bailout in history to a state-owned enterprise. 96 billion to Eskom over 3 years, or something like that.
I have a feeling that some of my friends overseas who keep losing their guns in boating accidents might have some of their guns show up here. It's time, revolution, take down the fucking government. When people ask me what we're going to replace it with, I say nothing, because when you cut out cancer, what do you replace it with? Nothing. Just cut it out. Cut that cancerous shit the fuck out and leave it.
It's like, yeah, no, the government continues to make a great argument for why there shouldn't be government. Like, you know. So again,
Bernie Sanders is in the running again, by the way.
oh my God, like, is as an independent candidate, or is he still trying
No,
to?
he's under the Democrat caucus.
He's gonna get fucked over again. He's gonna get fucked over again, dude.
Full-on Bolshevik.
Dude, I can tell you now the meta strategy is that the Democrats will push for, it's time for no more old white men. Let's put like a, young brown woman in politics. So it's going to...
The fresh
exactly.
face of AOC.
Exactly. And so like Sanders is going to get his ass kicked again. His party will sabotage him again.
Well, him having his honeymoon in the Soviet Union and all that whole debacle probably isn't hurting him now. So if that's not hurting him, nothing will. Like
he's oh my God, I
like an actual man who's actually supported the Soviet Union. Like, okay. So yeah, Sanders is back in. The one chick, was it Amy Klobuchar? She's in as well. But basically, there's like 5 people who consider themselves Democrats in America who aren't running. Everybody else is running.
was it... that was a problem on the Republican side in the last election. There was too many Republicans, and like the primaries weeded out like everyone, and then Trump ended up just taking over. So I love that the same thing happens here. Like they do this, and then like it just ends up that the worst candidate makes it through the primaries, and then it's dude, it's gonna be insane. It's gonna be like, I don't know, dude, the devil versus Sheldon Adelson or some shit on the final election. Like that's where we end up.
I love it though. If you can't laugh, why buy tickets to the circus if you can't laugh?
Yeah, tell me about it. Oh, dude,
bought that ticket.
Speaking of tickets, I won the lottery this week.
Nice.
I got 87 Rand back from like 800 Rand worth of eBucks tickets. So, FYI, because apparently some people don't know this.
So if you end up murdered in a bathtub, like, FYI,
yeah.
I am not the person who's arranging this murder.
Yeah, exactly.
For anyone that's listening, I do not support murdering my friends.
Good. That's good to know. No, so FYI, if you don't know this, if you have F&B and you're accumulating eBucks and you never use them, you can use them to buy like airtime and lottery tickets through the app. So I'd accumulated some crazy amount that I never used, and I'm like, okay, I'll just buy as many as I can. And I spent like, it was 875 Rands worth. I made about $90 off the Powerball and another $100 off the Lotto. So in the end, it was a better return than Bitcoin.
The salt levels on the Bitcoin is still high.
No, dude. I am 100% salt free because I sold, I think, 2 weeks before it peaked. And I actually turned a small profit. In the end, I didn't lose anything. I turned a small profit during that crazy wave. And I'm happy with that because there are people today that still have like ledgers with like Ethereum on them that they bought at like 300. And it's like they're sitting on this. If it helps, I did make the mistake of buying a small amount of EOH at the peak. And my God, what a bad decision that was. So EOH, hey, I guess this is kind of like a tech business topic.
Yeah, it is. And also we are going to have to discuss the budget. Like, let's just like touch on it later. It's not...
I don't want to. Okay, but anyway,
yeah,
yes.
Well,
we have to.
I don't want to either, but it's just something we have to slog through.
Yeah. So EOH, they lost 30% of their value in one day when it emerged that they had lost their Microsoft partnership, because it turns out that there was some dodgy dealings with the company that secured that partnership. And the US is very, very anti-corruption, like extremely. So an instruction came down from Microsoft Global to the South African branch to cut ties to the EOH. The problem is, EOH is like the biggest tech company in South Africa. They grew by acquisition over so many years. And now they're failing. And it's crazy. If you look up EOH share price and you set it to max, you'll see that from 2011 to like 2015, rocket ship, they were doing very well. And now they're doing less well. And even less. And it's just like my little tiny bit of money in EOH is down by like 70% from the point where I bought it. I know. And but it's crazy to watch this because it's like the only way out for them is to like start unbundling the company, which is a theme now, it seems. and actually like break it into a bunch of smaller businesses again. So it's kind of like we're losing our Microsoft almost. Like the one big giant tech company in South Africa is going under. Like losing your Microsoft partnership is a big deal. So yeah, that's quite sad. So if anyone else has EOH shares that they regret buying, you're in the same boat as I am.
It's okay, buddy. It's
Yeah.
hey, at least wait. Oh no, wait. You did buy Star Citizenship.
I did, but fuck, another bad mistake. I still, in all honesty, I haven't played it in like a year. I don't know what it's like now. Maybe it's good. I don't know.
Come on, man. No, come on. Don't go down that route. It's
I don't.
Not good, and you know it.
I spent $65 in like 2012 or some shit when like they were doing the crowdfunding, and are they still around? I haven't even checked. If I go to Roberts Space Industries.
You just have to follow Razorfist on Twitter. He'll occasionally tweet about how mad he is about it because he also bought even more in, and he still isn't over. There's three things I love Razorfist, but there's three things you can always rely on him for: him being mad about Star Citizens, him being mad about Zone of the Enders not being made, hence his hatred for Kojima. He doesn't actually hate Metal Gear. He hates that Zone of the Enders isn't being made. And him taking political shots at Ben Shapiro for some reason. I do not know why.
Well, it's fine. It's like I also don't know why the chief strategy officer of Dentsu Aegis Network SSA is on Twitter calling the fans of Renegade Report racist. So
I as a proud black racist take that very personally. You leave my boy Roman out of that.
I'm like
I haven't even heard of that company. What company is it?
So Dentsu Aegis Network, they're one of the smaller players on the global stage. Basically, it goes WPP, Omnicom, Publicis, and then a whole bunch of others globally.
I've heard of all of those, but not Dentsu. Then whatever.
So, okay, I don't want to use any platform really to sort of trash another marketing company. That's not what I'm trying to do here. I'm just pointing out the facts. And the first fact is that Michael Zustra is a bit of a doos. If you just look at his Twitter feed,
for our international listeners, that's a sort of swear slang word for a woman's private parts.
It's douche. I use it as the Afrikaans, but it's like it's
doos as in box, as in
exactly
a private part.
But I also prefer it just for empty box, meaning something blank. That's how I prefer to use it.
If we were British, we'd be calling him a cunt.
Actually, that might even be true without being British. But anyway, so the tweet that caught my attention was just that he asked, 200, it's one of those hashtag that happened sort of things, right? He's like, I asked my 200 media professionals about Renegade Report and no one had heard about it. It's just 300 racists downloading the podcast. And I'm like, okay, there's a couple of problems with that assertion. Number one, Renegade Report trends in like the top 5 in South Africa for all categories at all points. It's one of the most popular podcasts in the country. The fact that you don't know that is kind of weird. The other fact is they've hosted Big Data Liberty, Gwen Gwenya, J.A. Steenhuisen. They've hosted a bunch of high-profile people. And the fans are diverse of this podcast. I know that for a fact. So it's not only counterfactual, it's just stupid. It's like nothing about that tweet made sense. Absolutely nothing. And I'm just like, how do you tweet this? As a C-level exec in a marketing firm on social media, I'm just like, that is a bold strategy.
Cotton. It's like career equivalent of putting a bullet in your own foot.
It really is. And then like tweeting and complaining about the hospital bill. Like, I don't understand the series of decisions that led him to this. But then he doubled down with another tweet that made absolutely no sense. 1 second he's talking about the fact that he works with a bunch of brilliant women, and the next half he's talking about why these podcasts have to go to the internet begging cap in hand for pennies. And I'm like, you dumbass, have you not heard of crowdfunding? And it's just like, you know what? Clearly he doesn't. Either he was hacked or he doesn't know what he's talking about. And both of them are like equal possibilities at this point. But I responded to that. And I want to call out the stats because I think they're pretty cool. So the Spotify this year made a $380 million acquisition of was one company with 2 names. But Spotify is making a huge bet on podcasting. iTunes and Google Play have sort of let it slide a bit. So Spotify sees this as the next big growth market. So they're going to start offering podcasts from like famous people on their platform. They're also going to put in monetization eventually. Like they're actually going to try and turn themselves into like a premier podcasting platform. You know,
I
and
can't wait for our podcast to not be monetized.
yes, exactly. We're going to fall foul of all the rules. And then it's like, so that's like a pretty big bet. But the second number, which dwarfs even that, is Patreon. And some people that listen probably know what Patreon is. If you don't know what it is, it's essentially a crowdfunding subscription platform where you can pledge monthly amounts to creators on the internet. This year, they're on track to disperse $500 million in payouts to independent creators. And it's like this whole go to the internet begging cap in hand shit. Yeah, it's still kind of true, but that's changing really quickly. Crowdfunding proved that the model works. As much as it kills me, Star Citizen kind of proved that, because I think at peak they'd raised over $80 million or something crazy crowdfunded, which is more than the budget for like actual AAA titles. And so the model works. The more people have credit cards and disposable income, they raise things online. And I'm like, knowing all of this, you know, putting a podcast out for your brand is a smart move. And understanding that crowdfunding is a viable option for independent creation is also a smart move. And the chief strategy officer for this company apparently grasped neither. So I'm just like, I'm amazed. I don't know how he got his job.
Top tier talent at work there.
Clearly. So anyway, the last thing is just quite funny is if you go to their website, all the campaigns that they promote on the front page are from 3 years ago. They haven't updated their site in 3 years. So I'm like, clearly these guys get digital, right? Clearly they understand what it's all about. I'm amazed. So I've never worked with them, for them. I don't know anyone who does. I'm profoundly sorry if you do, but also based on that performance alone, I don't know if they have good digital leadership at that company. Oh my God. But anyway, so it's just like, the reason this interests me is that I do work in digital marketing. That's my background. And it's staggering to me to see this, you know? But anyway, that's that's about as much as I want to think about that one. I guess we should talk budget.
Yeah. Going on that, bud. The no script economics section.
We're fucked. Okay, the section is done. Can we move on to the next?
Bailouts! What? By our socialist commie government? Shock. Surprised.
Yeah.
Surprised hand over mouth.jpg meme. Like that dude from Star Trek or whatever had to hand
like a Star Trek cartoon. Oh my God.
What?
Oh my God. Yeah, this...
you know what? Okay, if I can, right?
Hit it.
I'm gonna paraphrase Ron from Parks and Recreation when it comes to that. My feeling on bailouts is 99.9999% of the time they shouldn't happen, because as Ron pointed out from Parks and Recs, bailing out a failing company is like putting ridiculously large amounts of resources into nursing back to health a wild animal, not even your own pet, a wild animal that's mortally wounded or sick, instead of granting it the mercy of a killing blow, eating the meat, skinning it, and moving the hell on. That's what we should do. That's what we should do, but instead we're forcing it to live.
Yep, so instead, Mboweni says in the same speech that Eskom's debt is Eskom's problem, government won't take it on, so BTW, here's 100 billion rand. Okay. Sure. So I want to see what this unbundling of Eskom looks like, because it really just looks like an opportunity to create even more space for like dodgy contracts and shit. But
of course, the unions aren't happy because now their power is gone, because they no longer hold a majority if it splits.
And that's the thing. Like, I am not in the sphere of South Africa where union membership is an important part of my life, and I recognize that there are millions of people who are. I wonder if they took honest stock of what the unions have managed to achieve for them, is it worth it? Because the strikes are never ending, the raises are always quite small, it's always a huge disruption. You know, the unions are the reason it's difficult to hire people in South Africa. You know, and I'm a small business owner. I've had to see this for myself. The government regulations alone are a problem. The moment you're trying to hire any number of people and they unionize, you're pretty much screwed, because South Africa has very strong worker protections, which sounds good in theory. In practice, it means people will show up, take your money, and not do the job sometimes. That does happen. Hopefully not too much, but it does happen. And it's just, I look at this and I completely understand the kind of the hard right position on unions. Like, because it's like, I'm all for the concept of unions, assuming the people in them are good and they're educated and they add a lot of value, and it's just collective bargaining for fair pay. That's completely okay. Those are trade guilds. I wish we had them. What we have now, and I think I said this last time, is a bunch of bullies.
Yeah. I like to liken it this way. Unions would work for most of South Africa's white-collar workers. The problem is most of South Africa's white-collar workers don't need them. But they would work for accountants and all that. Yeah, it would work, and they could get fair pay and all that. But they don't need it because they just let market forces do their thing. And,
Yeah. So, Anyway, so the budget numbers. No surprise, the sin taxes have all gone up because that's always an easy target. Carbon tax coming in, VAT zero rating on fuel phasing out in the next budget. There's a whole lot of shit happening at once. But then somebody started pointing out the numbers, and this is actually the stat which it's not a thing in my world at all, but apparently the total amount of taxes you pay when you buy a new car, it's about 40% of the value of the vehicle at this point, almost. So a car that costs you 200k could cost you 120k without the taxes, which is insane. And then I see people chiming in. There are cars that are assembled in South Africa, shipped to Mozambique, and sold for less money than you can get the same vehicles here. And it's like, that's where we are. We're exporting like petrol and electricity and vehicles to other countries in Africa where it's cheaper to buy them versus South Africa because we need these huge taxes to pay for all this welfare. The third and final and scariest number is that of the 1 trillion rand that we're raising in taxes, over 50% in aggregate is going to social welfare and grants of some fashion. Healthcare.
Yeah, that's actually what I was going to go in on as well as like.
That's kind of insane.
And deeply alarming and not particularly sustainable.
Yeah, it really isn't.
Like for those of you who are not super economically literate, that's a very bad sign because it means that half of your taxes are going to social programs for people who are not working.
Yeah, and it's like, as much as I don't have a problem, it's like I thought about this a lot actually, like the welfare thing, because we keep hearing like, countries like Denmark are socialist and, they seem to be doing fine. And it's like, no,
they're not.
No, they're fucking not. But you know what I realized? And maybe I'm wrong and maybe I'm missing this. I'd love to be corrected on this. Does SASO publish the stats of the people that roll off welfare?
I don't think they do.
Because people don't. They die. That's the only way they get off welfare. I mean, because again, like, so in general, my position on welfare, and like, if you look at these fake socialist countries, because it's actually capitalists with a strong welfare system, but anyway.
Yeah, that's what it is. That's actually what I was going to say. It's very, they have greater economic freedom than even the United States in certain aspects. So,
yep.
Yeah.
So
we'll get into that in the next episode.
Yeah, I think so. But yeah, the point is that I support welfare in as much as welfare is as a social safety net for when you screw up and you need assistance temporarily to get your life back on track.
Exactly.
And then once you do that and you start, eventually working and earning and paying back into the system, that works. And like, that's a great system. South African welfare is not that, because it's just like all these issues kind of happen at once. Like, you've got the people who are on welfare seem to, and this is the part that boggles me, and I really want to dig into this more. There are people that are on welfare that's not enough to actually support them full time. Like, even if you add up all the grants a family could possibly get, it's not that much. So they must be doing some kind of work. And between the two of those, their careers aren't advancing to the point where they earn enough to roll off welfare. Like that just doesn't seem to happen. And that's a symptom of our flat economic growth and our failing education and like a whole bunch of other things. But I look at this and I'm starting to understand what these sort of right-leaning commentators say, where it's like, economic growth is actually the solution to a lot of these problems. And if we did that, you wouldn't need as much welfare, because not everyone actually wants to live in those conditions with that little money and all the stress. I get that. But somehow we don't seem to be able to break out of it. And just every year, it's a smaller and smaller portion of South Africans being taxed for more and more to pay for this. So in preparation, like I went and I dug through, there was the 2016 community survey, the census. And I just had a look at the population figures. And it's apropos of nothing other than the number was a huge shock. Of the 4 population groups in South Africa, white, black, colored, Asian, whites were the only one who saw a significant population drop in the 5 years between 2011 and 2016. And I know for a fact that there were a lot of white kids born. And if you look at the charts on the thing, it actually shows a very clear, like sort of from the 20 to 45 year age group, a large amount of people just fucked off. Like they just left the country. And it's like, that was the first wave, and now more recently it's everyone in that age group that are skilled or looking at leaving the country. And it's like, none of those are good signs, because those are the people that are paying most of the tax that's helping keep everything else afloat. And I know the government knows this. I know for a fact that they have these numbers. But it's like they're locked into this death spiral. They can't break out of it. And it's just like... So anyway, that's why I say our budget situation is that we're fucked. That concludes the economics portion of this program.
My only last comment on that is, for me, my stance to that is that the whole point of welfare, or I'm
What? You, the hardcore libertarian, anti-state, anti-government, defend yourself with guns at all costs person? You're in favor of welfare?
No, not exactly. I say you can either have open borders or you can have a welfare system. You cannot have both, because it's a magnet. And in terms of welfare, I would be willing to tolerate a welfare system that is better designed, that incentivizes you economically to get off it.
Yeah.
Eventually, not to live on it. But I don't think there is a welfare. I honestly don't think there's a welfare. I'm open to this being corrected. Like, people can tweet us, whatever, WhatsApp voice note us. But if anyone hears this, I don't think there's a well-designed economic system for welfare on planet Earth that economically incentivizes you to make smarter economic choices and to make choices that will lead you off that system. Every single one that I know of either keeps you there or makes you deeper into that system.
Yeah. Because it's a beautiful political solution, because it's easy to throw other people's taxpayer money at the problem and then never educate these people. So this is kind of related. Who remembers the SASA grants fiasco when CPS Paymaster's contract had to be renewed under fire, and it went all the way to the Constitutional Court? Because I remember that.
I'm old enough to remember that.
I remember April approaching with the fear in the air that maybe people wouldn't get their grant money. But then as part of that, I think it was Ground Up did an investigation. And they found, among other things, that CPS was abusing the data on welfare recipients and selling them value-added services they didn't need. So, like, expensive funeral plans, airtime top-ups, like a bunch of crap. And the crazy thing is, they follow this one woman, and it's like, the way it works is that they are able to deduct that straight from grant money before it even reaches the card that the person cashes it out from. So there's people who are meant to get a grant of, like, a couple $100 a month, and they go to draw it, and it's basically depleted before they get to touch it. And that's not even the government's fault. That's because the private firm doing the cards has been able to just kind of muscle their way into extracting. I mean, I don't know what the numbers were, but it was like a double-digit percentage of welfare payouts went straight back into the pockets of this private company doing the cards. And I'm like, people should be lined up and shot for stuff like this, because as much as I don't like the fact that we have a huge welfare state, they are poor people, they are desperate, and the last thing they need is to be screwed over by the government. And that's what came out of the Khan Court case for me. It still makes me upset to think about, because the ministers were fucking clueless. Batlabele Damini, Mrs. Johnny Walker, she's insanely stupid and has managed to somehow maintain her position, and now I understand why. It's probably because CPS pulled strings behind the scene, paid people off, did whatever, to become the vendor for the solution. And they've made a bunch of money off it. And they should all be shot for that, because
I'm not in favor of, like, huge communist governments where they line up people and summarily execute them. But maybe in this one case,
It's like,
you've caused so much human suffering that it would be morally derelict for us to let you continue living.
yeah, and
Actually,
it's like sell overpriced shit and get people who are employed into debt. That's fine. At that point, you're earning a salary and you're making a choice where to spend it. That's a different scenario. If you're dependent on government grants, get the full value of the grant at least. Like, what the fuck? So that really upsets me, and I don't even know if it's like been fully resolved yet. But that's just like, so not even, it's like it's even with all the money being spent on this, it's not being spent well. People aren't getting the full value of it, and the ones that are not receiving any education that increases their financial literacy. And it's like, that's, people keep making dumb decisions, and nobody stops it because it's, the incentive is there to keep letting them make dumb decisions. And my whole thing is, absolutely make your dumb decision, but not when your livelihood is dependent on a handout from the state. At that point, the government also has a responsibility to help you get out of that situation. And promising fee-free education, and then limiting it to people that, either can't take it, or then there's no space at universities to take it. Like, all that sort of shit is not actually helping. So, of course, every party is like, we're going to increase the grants next year. And
I think the government should have no place in education whatsoever, but that's just the libertarian in me.
well, the thing is, even so, it's like, every month that a grant arrives, you should also pair that with, here's your grant money, here's the path to getting off grant money, please do something, just do something.
Yeah, like progress reports, like how are you doing on getting out? Speaking of lining people up and shooting them,
yes,
I was listening to Rogan's podcast, and he had one of my favorite people on, a guy I kind of like, a guy by the name of Andy Stump. He's a former U.S. Navy SEAL. And the reason I liked that podcast is because at one point he pointed out the one thing that I have a pet peeve as, which is, I hate it in movies when, and this is my gun maniac in me, when you have people with like 72 round pistols, like fire, like the dude fires like fucking 100 rounds and never reloads that pistol once. I'm just like, I like count the rounds. I'm like, okay, 15. Okay, he's hit 17. 21, maybe it's an extended mag. 35 shot. Okay, fuck it. Maybe he's got an invisible drum magazine attached to his pistol. Like, sorry, that's just my thing. As a gun guy, like, that just drives me insane. Like,
yep. Yeah, no.
And I think for us as well, as both programmers, what drives me insane as well is just random shit in movies when they do like tech things, like, let's hack this using a GUI in Visual Basic. I'm like, please stop. I can't watch this any longer. It's
like, what was that music video from like the late 90s? Was it Kelly Rowland? And there's a woman texting her boyfriend on Excel.
They actually asked Nelly about that 10 years later. And he's like, I don't know. It was the 90s. It was a crazy time, man.
I remember that because that was the first time I saw one of those phones, like in a video, and I saw it was Excel on the phone, and I thought, wow, that's cool. And then the next thing was, oh wait, she's using it like a text messenger, and I'm like, what the fuck is going on here?
Must have been a hell of a text macro. Hell of a macro.
Oh my god.
So like, and I realize for most people, whatever profession you're trained in or you're interested in, you probably get it. For me, it's anything technological or firearms in a movie. Like either or both of those, I just cringe a little. Like I'm just like, ugh.
It's how I cringe with marketing. That's my whole thing. It's just like that and slowly but surely economics. The more I learn about it, the more it's just like. So that applies to so many areas of life. It's actually quite insane.
Yeah.
Oh, no, dude. So there was actually a small tech story which I thought was quite scary. Just so that you know this is a thing. Everyone knows that phones have location data, right? And if you get someone's like a typical Android or iPhone, a thing that seems to happen quite a lot now, especially in the States, is that, people get arrested, police unlock the phone, and among other things, they use the location history on the phone as evidence, which makes sense, right? If your phone's recording you where you go, and it knows where you were at what time, that's evidence. There's a new thing popping up, where police are doing reverse location searches, which is basically they ask the companies, can you tell us everyone who was in this area at this time based on their mobile phone location history? And apparently a couple of warrants for that sort of information has already been released. And looking at that, it's like it's just the next thing on the road to like a complete surveillance state.
I, for one, welcome our government overlords. I loved Minority Report.
Exactly, yeah. It's like, please, China, please don't, send your, correctional facility troops after us. But it's like that. That's kind of crazy. So, look, phones, you can turn that stuff off theoretically, but since you can't open the firmware on the phone, you don't know if it's actually recording it or not. Apple and Google have both been dinged for that a few times, where it's like you thought you turned it off, but you didn't. But it's kind of crazy. So now if you have a phone on you in the US and you're in proximity to a major event and they can actually get a court order through, then the vendors can be compelled to release some measure of information as to who was actually in an area at a given time.
But that makes the assumption that you were carrying the device, does it not?
That's always like there's always those mitigating factors, but that's
like,
just.
I could give this phone to my brother and he could go to the scene of a rape. Sorry for making it that bad, but and then I'm called in for that. Like, no, come on.
Yeah, no, it's possible. And the downside to this, and this is the part that's most frustrating, is that information in aggregate is actually quite useful. If you've ever wondered how Google Maps knows what the traffic is, that's how it knows. It tracks.
I explained this to a friend as well the other day. It's
Yeah.
like, did you think they magically imaged it? No, it's...
No, they don't have real-time satellites with ML on the images. What they do have is people in their cars with phones with location settings turned on, and they're able to aggregate that and predict traffic patterns. That's how it works. And that is actually phenomenally useful. So it's like everything in tech, you take the bad with the good. So this leads me on to the main one tech topic, and I'm going to link this in the description of the video. There was a Gizmodo journalist who, over the period of 6 weeks, tried to cut out all the major tech companies from her life. So,
yes, I think you mentioned this briefly on a previous episode.
I mentioned that I was going to mention it, and then I didn't. So, what she basically did was, she cut out, it was not in this order, but Microsoft, Facebook, Apple, Google, and Amazon. And what she did is she did it like 1 week for each one, and then on the final week she cut all of them out at the same time. Technically, she did this, which is actually quite amazing. She hooked all her devices up to a VPN managed by a guy that then blocked traffic to all of the vendors. And it actually, it's a very good, I mean, I don't normally refer to Gizmodo for good journalism, but this was a good series. Because she actually...
Gizmodo journalism?
What? But so she mentions like how, without being able to access Amazon or any of the CDNs or any of the cloud storage that powers modern websites, there was a bunch of stuff she legitimately couldn't get to. Like there were just sites that straight up wouldn't load for her. The week that she blocked Microsoft, she couldn't play music in her car because that system uses Microsoft's cloud. Blocking Apple was actually, it cost her status in her social community. Like, it was insane. And then the final week, there's a photo of her kit for that week. It looks like a photo from the mid-90s. There's paperbacks, there's a handwritten calendar, there's a Nokia 3310. That was her gear for a week. And there were two things that came out of that story, which are just, actually three things. The first one is that most of the internet now depends on like two companies. Somewhere in the background, someone is using a service that's, hosted by a big company. The second one was that she told the story of a flight they had to take. And they were worried about the flight because she's married and they've got like a 2 or 3-year-old kid or 5-year-old kid or something. And normally they give the kid a charged iPad with some movies to watch on the plane. In the final week of the challenge, they couldn't do that. So instead, they had to play with their kid and talk to him and like do coloring books.
Surprise! You mean the actual parents?
I know. And then the kid fell asleep for the last 2 hours of the flight. And then like she says at the end of the flight, her husband turns to her and goes, "This was the easiest flight we've had with this kid." The moment they took the iPad out of the equation. And I'm like, of course, because that's how the fuck it works, And this is like She's a tech journalist, and she didn't even, after that, she cottoned on to how much she was delegating technology, for things in her life that she should have been doing. The other thing was, because she couldn't have music in her car, and all the streaming services, like they all use one of the major clouds for their storage. So she didn't have streaming music for a lot of her time. The silence gave her her own thoughts back. She was able to actually think about things and process things, and she started thinking about a book that she hadn't finished. And I'm like, so as it turns out, human interaction and sitting in silence are both completely normal things that we need as humans, which modern technology has made impossible. And not only that, but they've also built this, surveillance panopticon, which we're just now starting to understand just how dangerous it is. So anyway, I'll link the series in the descriptions where it goes out. It is well worth your time to read it. It doesn't impact us as much in South Africa, but even so, like the top 3-4% in South Africa who are so connected, it does actually.
It's funny because she cut out sort of streaming and all that. Whereas I'm commuting a lot more now, and I have to say I even tweeted this, like audiobooks that you download, even like free ones from like the LibriVox project, you read the classics or listen to classics, have made the world of difference on my daily commute on the N1. Like it makes it enjoyable between various podcasts and books. Like I actually enjoy my commute now. Well, borderline enjoy it.
Yeah, way better than hating it. And that's just the thing. It's like, so anyway, to kind of wrap this episode up all the way back to the start, this is why podcasting is the future, and I'm happy to be a part of it.
I am too sometimes.
Sometimes. What? Oh my God, are we about to find out? Like, tune in next time for how this fight envelops.
the Civil War. The James Webb Telescope is almost done. But we'll discuss that next week. That's my tech topic for next week. I'm really amped about these new telescopes and some of the discoveries we're making in astrophysics. It's awesome.
Yeah, no, I think that we'll definitely have a science-heavy show next week. All right, so I think we are done. Thanks for listening. You can find us at noscriptshow.com. Like us, follow us, stalk us, and send us WhatsApp voice notes if you have anything interesting to say.
Please note that both of us will view those WhatsApp things, so try not to send us like weird stuff, or if you do, like at least do it at like 6 p.m. When you can blame it on the liquor. Like, respect yourselves.
Or don't. Hey, it's a free world.
Or don't.
Yeah.
I'm not your dad. Like, go ahead.
All right. Peace out and see you all next week.
Thanks, guys. Cheers.